Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We still have a ton of people waiting to get into the cinema, which means that we are all ready to be engaged in this incredible conversation. Thank you for being here with us tonight. My name is Amanda Hunt. I'm the head of public engagement, learning, and impact here at the Walker. Happy spring equinox. Happy Nowruz. I'd like to ground us by acknowledging that we and the Walker Arts Center and the Minneapolis Sculpture Garden are located on the contemporary, ancestral, and traditional homelands of the Dakota people. This site, which was once an expanse of marshland and meadow, holds meaning for the Dakota, Ojibwe, and Indigenous people from other Native nations who still live with us in community today. Abundant Cities is back. It's been a minute. We're back. This program is a continuation of an exploration of civic life and our region in particular at the intersection of art, culture, and climate. Tonight, we're centering imagination as a tool of rebellion and joy. Let that land. Okay, that's what we're here to do. It is tough out there, and we are here to think about solutions and creativity and what is possible, because there is still so much that is possible. So let's remember that. All of this can help us move toward a more just climate future in particular, but many kinds of futures. We're bringing together both national and local thought leaders, working across government, civics, and art spaces in relationship to environment. And so some of the folks, they'll introduce themselves in a moment. Deborah Cullinan, Benny Starr, Katy Lackey. I did it. We joked about this. It's Lackey. We're in the city of lakes, though. And I was like, I'm going to do that. Roopali Phadke and Amanda Lovelee. My namesake. We share a name. We love each other. This group comes together at a critical time when cross-sector conversations and collaborative solutions across creativities are needed more than ever. We are co-hosting this program with the Metropolitan Council's Art and Policy Division, which centers art and artists as leaders in imagining and shaping bold, bright, and playful regional policy for our collective futures. So now I'd like to welcome Charlie Zelli, Chair of the Met Council, to the stage to welcome us again.
Thank you so much, Amanda, and what a great evening to be here. My name is Charlie Zelli, as Amanda said, and I am chair of the Metropolitan Council. I get to a lot of places around the Metro, but it is a thrill to be at the Walker Arts Center. I have spent much of my life in this wonderful institution, and I will also confess that although I went to church every Sunday across the street here, if it's called Lyndale and Hennepin Street, at St. Mark's, I would skip out of my confirmation classes and find my spirituality here by playing hooky. So this, this is a special treat for Met Council, because part of our mission is to find vision for our metro area, and that's what we're going to learn a lot about tonight. Every 10 years, the Met Council is tasked with developing a long-range plan for the region, and that includes vision and goals and a policy foundation for land use, housing, transportation, water resources, and regional parks. So all that is in our mix, and what it does is it gets us close to critical issues, which is what I think many of you all are here for when you consider climate, equity, natural systems, public health, safety, and well-being. So what is it that we need to be thinking about, especially today at this time? And there are many of us who care about it, and many of us in government who care about that. We have this guide called Imagine 2050. We use the word imagine because we value the power of imagination as you vision how we want to live our future. And when you think about engaging and connecting with communities, which we've done over the past 2 years, we realized that the pride we have in what we accomplished was in no part due to our art and policy team. We actually approved the plan in February. So part of the long-range plan and the work of the art and policy team, we really kind of worked through many processes which I think were magical. And I use the word magical because loving, whether it's a work of art or an act of performance, magic is involved. And I think that how you normally don't think of that in terms of setting public policy and the constraints and the guidelines of how we live. But we think so, because that's part of how we engage creativity in developing this next world. So that's what this evening is about. That's what this conversation is about. I'm thrilled, and I want to just take a moment to acknowledge and recognize and to appreciate Amanda Lovelee, who was our past director and developed, led our policy work, our artist in residence. She not only guided us through the process, but the respect for the artist and the respect for the creative process. And with that, I also want to acknowledge a number of Met Council leaders that are here. Most importantly, Robert Lilligren, who is the chair of our Community Development Committee, but also a Walker board director. Thank you, Robert. And our regional administrator, Ryan O'Connor, is here, and we have many other Met Council folks who are part of our community development team. It's really a thrill for us to be here tonight. So welcome. And now it's my honor to, and I'm along with you, really looking forward to hearing the panel. And to kick us off, I'm just going to call up our panelists, starting with Deborah Cullinan. So Deborah, thank you and welcome. Yeah.
Great. Hi. Hi. Okay, just a little more, not just from the front row. Hello. Great. It's so good to be here in a city that I lived in and I love and I have family in. So thank you, Walker. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Met Council, for bringing me to a place that feels like home. Here's how it's going to go. We're going to ask our panelists here to introduce themselves to you. I'm going to ask a little bit about all of you, tell you a little bit about me and why I'm here, and then we're going to get into a conversation and get ready for a moment where we're going to ask you a little bit more about what you think the world should look like. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge a couple of things. So we're here, we're talking about climate, we're talking about environment and connection. We are also here talking about the critical role that artists can play in helping us to think about a better world. We're talking about what happens when people come together around art and creativity and are given the permission to imagine a future for themselves and their communities that is better than what they have today. We're talking about the unique way that artists can shift culture, can help shift policy, can help us see things that we might not otherwise see. When we talk about policy, and each of these experts here will give you a better sense of this than I ever could, we're talking about policy with a small p. We're talking about the idea that policies exist everywhere. They exist in our classrooms, on our neighborhoods, on our street corners. They also exist in legislation, in agencies, and in government. And we are the people. These are our policies to design and our policies to insist on. And so what I hope that you will hear tonight is our stories of how artists can help in that work and how now might be the most important time that we can imagine. So we're gonna get into it. Are y'all ready? Okay, very good. So I'm gonna start with Amanda Lovelee, and then we're just gonna go down, and each of them have these beautiful slides. I don't need beautiful slides, but they have beautiful slides. And each of them are gonna tell you a little bit about who they are and what they do.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here. There are so many friends, collaborators, partners in the room. What an honor. So I'm Amanda Lovelee. I'm a civic and environmental artist based here in the Twin Cities, and I do cross-sector work. And so the main three components of my work are I collaborate with scientists, and my projects create data. So some of the works that you see up here, like Urban Flower Field is 96 plots of biodiverse flowers testing biodiversity's effect on soil remediation, and that science was published. And each of these projects have different scientific components. I also build spaces for conversation and connection. So the piece on the right is called Plant Encouragement, and I did it at a residency in Mass Mocha. And woo! Yeah, Gabe! And I I made cyanotypes of the weeds of Mass Mocha and then turned them into pennants and invited participants to write words of encouragement to the resilient plants going around that campus. And then most importantly, I think, I make government fun. I celebrate civics. I don't think that government has to hurt, and that I think that there's really playful ways to engage in policy and in policy change. So I'm not sure how many of you got to play policy out there, but that was a card game that the Art and Policy team we created to raise awareness of what the Met Council does and allow people to envision what their hopes for the future could be. I also drove a popsicle truck for the city of St. Paul as the artist in residence. So my work, my mediums change and it broadens many different areas, but really I believe that artists are needed in this moment in history and across every sector. And I'm going to pass it to Benny.
Benny. Yay, Amanda.
Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm going to get you all to do one thing for me, if you don't mind. If you repeat after me, who am I before the work begins? Thank you for asking me that. My name is Benny Starr, and I will tell you who I am before the work begins. I'm a son of the South, born in South Carolina, born in Charleston, South Carolina, where anywhere from around 40% or 60, 70% of Black people in this country can trace their roots back to those ports of Charleston. Son, grandson, great-grandson of Gullah Geechee people. My work is rooted in remembrance and prophecy. My work is soulful. It is spiritual. I am an ode to process, and it's very important that we know that. Oftentimes, my work is a veneration of the Black rural South, but my work is also, and I am also, collaborative. It is important for me to say that before I let you know that I am also a hip-hop artist. I'm a filmmaker, cultural strategist, and I believe that art and creativity isn't just for those like myself who have a refined discipline. We identify it as artists. Creativity is for all of us. This embodies the approach that I take in life. Life is a creative exploration. And we are charged with a reclamation project of retaking what it means to be creative. It is not just for the artist. Creativity, if we can be so inclined to accept this definition, is the way that a conscious being encounters the world around them that sends them into processes of bringing what is new and of value into existence. And this is the way that I live my life, from the work that I do that is creative, to the relationships that I cultivate, to the innovations that I try to share and learn from. Life in and of itself is a creative exploration. And oftentimes I'm able to break that down into different phases, and I'm including this artwork. Shout out to a brilliant artist, Yvonne McCoy in Atlanta, Georgia, who has collaborated with me to create these wonderful artworks. But it just gives us an idea of a commitment to pre-production, which is about that very question that you all were so kind to ask me. Who are you before the work begins? Contemplation, reflection, crate digging. Anybody that's familiar with record stores, I know everything is digital, but in record stores, we used to have to go and read the back of the vinyl, flip the vinyl over, find out where it was recorded, who wrote the songs, who produced it, the cipher, how we do this right here, how we get together, how we create a space for commentary, critique, dissent, all the things. And then when all that is finished, how we honor the work. How will we honor the work of your lives, of my lives, this moment? All of that is wound up into a creative process of our lives. And I I'm thankful that you all can engage with us tonight on this type of creative exploration. So I will pass it to Katy.
Hi, everyone. My name's Katy, and it's really great to be here. I just flew in from DC, and it feels really great to get out of that city and into y'all's city. But the 3 photos you see up on the screen here are my why. They are my who I am before the work begins. And you might be thinking, what the heck does a photo of my beautiful dog Denali, the snowy mountain I grew up at the base of, or my favorite food have to do with a policy and art talk tonight? But for me, this is what's at stake in the climate crisis and in this moment. The people and creatures we love, the relationships that make us, the places that hold and nurture us, and our ways of relating and sharing joys with each other. And this is what we are losing. This is what our current policies and solutions too often don't actually serve. But what I've learned through working with artists is that reconnecting with these relationships and our why, really centering these interdependencies in our work to build policy and technical solutions and working from that place of love is what I think will allow us to really finally build a nation that works for the all. So I never intended to work in water or policy, and I really never intended to work with artists. You may say that water and climate chose me. And after college, I was working in international health and development, but quickly came to find that anything I wanted to make progress on or change came back to water. Whether it was too much water, too little water, poor water quality, who controlled water, who had access to water, or what infrastructure and resource decisions were being made. So I returned to the US and thought, hey, I'll go to a global environmental politics program in graduate school, and then I'll have all of the answers. But as I started to dig more and more into the US water sector over the next 10 years, a few things emerged. First, that beautiful, messy blue copper photo you see on your right is actually wastewater being treated. And it's a photo by artist Stowe Len during his residency at a water treatment plant in Virginia. And for me, it represents the power of water. Water not just as a climate problem, but a really necessary part of the climate solution, from greenhouse gas reductions to generating sustainable energy, building equitable adaptation and resilience pathways. The second thing I started to see in the US, you'll see represented in these photos of water shortages and water and severe flooding, are that water and climate challenges have significant racial disparities and economic impacts in our country. And the people most impacted by these issues are the least likely to be in policymaking positions or decisions about resource management. And third, the current systems and structures we have in the water sector are not enough. They're not working. They're contributing in many cases to the problems we're actually trying to solve with those solutions. Which brings me to today, and I currently am serving as a senior associate at PolicyLink, a national research and action organization advancing racial and economic equity across all sectors. And a big piece of our portfolio on the water and climate team at PolicyLink is anchoring the Water Equity and Climate Resilience Caucus, which is a national network of over 80 allied and frontline organizations working to affect federal policy changes, narrative change, and movement building. And our vision is really what you see depicted in that illustration on the right, which is to live in a world that honors water, promotes generational climate security and water affordability, and builds frontline leadership for change. But I'm here today and going to focus on some of our collaborations in this stage, because to build that world, we really have to redefine narratives and build model policies that serve the all. And that requires building something we have yet to ever see in this nation, which if you're an artist in the room, you'll know, but it turns out artists are really good at creating what does not yet exist. So thank you. And I'll pass it over to Roopali.
Thank you. What a great panel here. Hi, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Roopali Phadke. I was born in the city of Bombay. Spent some of my childhood growing up in the Boston area and have been a resident of St. Paul for the last 20 years. I've lived and worked on both coasts. But I'm here now, and I love being here. I've been a resident of the Twin Cities. I've raised 3 children in this place, and it is a beautiful place to live. I also have some neighbors in the audience tonight, which is really wonderful. Thank you. So I included this slide here from one of my favorite public arts exhibits. This is the installation called Ice Watch. It was installed in Paris this is at the Pantheon, during the COP15, during the signing of the Paris Climate Accords. And was one of my great privileges to be able to be there. And I thought it was such a good example of art and science and policy coming together, doing a really, really important global policy moment. The other image, I know there's likely some McAllister people in the house. There always are at events like this. Students, parents, colleagues of mine, alumni. And so I wanted to say a special hello to all of you. I included this. This is our new mascot, if you didn't know. It's a Highland Coo. It's also an emo coo, if you can see the shield in its face. I was unabashedly a supporter of the unicorn mascot, which did not win, as you can see. I am an educator. I'm an environmental policy scholar and professor. I'm committed to a model of community-engaged teaching that focuses on context as much as content. And that context right now, if you heard the news today, includes a deep assault on higher education. So teaching environmental and climate policy, it's hard right now, but it also means just being like one step ahead of the news and ahead of what my students know. And so these days, I think of my work, and particularly my work in the classroom, as just being all about offering perspective and helping my students, helping myself, helping us all together, right? Remember that we can simultaneously grieve the world around us and also find a tremendous amount of hope in it. And so hope is a political act. It's why I think we're here together today. It's a refusal to give in to despair. But I also wanted to mention what I've heard geographer Patricia Lopez say and write, that hope is also a social act. It's not an individual emotion. And so I want to think about that with you. And I want to say a little bit about my research. So my research sits at the corner of energy and water policy and public engagement. And in my career, I've had the privilege to think about a lot of different kinds of questions, challenges of building dams, building mines, building wind farms and solar energy in rural and in urban communities. And so I think, especially like the Met Council folks in the room, I am really interested in how we build things, how we maintain infrastructures, how we take down, sometimes demolish, complex technologies that shape our lives or maybe just don't work for us anymore. I'm interested in how we get people to think about infrastructure, and especially the infrastructure that's like largely invisible to us, or so backgrounded or so buried that we fail to notice that it's holding our life and our communities together. Sewer lines, water mains, electricity systems. So I've been engaging art as a research method and a social practice for probably about 20 years, although I've shared with my panelists, I feel like a complete imposter here and even at the Walker. It was really such a Such a privilege to be invited tonight. But I have collaborated with so many wonderful artists, some of whom are in the room, my dear colleague Amanda, and these partnerships have really helped me prioritize community input and to think about the social impact of research. And so in this image, I just want to highlight a few of those projects. And the one on your top left is a project that was called Wind Visual that allowed me and my research team to think about the impact, the visual impact of utility scale wind turbines. This is what's happening in the landscapes of Wyoming. The one right below that was about imagining, this project was called Disposition. It was about imagining the Mississippi River before and after the locks and dams. And then the one to your right was a project with the city of St. Paul that we eventually also did with the city of Minneapolis that was about really thinking through urban climate change and heat islands in particular. So that is me. I think with that, I'm going to turn it back to Deborah.
Wow. It is incredible to be sitting here with you all today. So I'm the vice president for the arts at Stanford University, and I think the reason I'm here is just because I know Amanda. But I would say the through line in my work really has always been my belief that almost everything is better if it is infused with art and creativity. I'm, as we've been talking about over the course of today, a big art and person. And when we see systems and structures in our lives that we know would be better if we integrate art into those systems and structures, we should do it. Things will just be better. So I'm really honored to be here. Before I jump in with a couple of questions, and then we do have some questions for you all as well, I just want to get a sense of who you all are. So how many artists in the room? And you can raise your hand more than once. You can be more than one thing. Hello, artists. Let's just say artists. If you ask that question, you should raise your hand. Yeah. Okay. Artists in the room. How many people working in government in the room? Wow, it's really fantastic. How many people are in my family in the room? Oh, yes. Awesome. How many neighbors of panelists or people who love panelists in the room? Yeah. Okay, so this gives us some sense. I certainly didn't ask all the questions, but I do want to just give a special thank you to all of you public servants, you who are working in service of our communities. We are so grateful to you, and especially grateful that you're here tonight. That tells me that there is so much possibility in this community, and there's so much that we can do. So I'm going to jump in with just a couple of questions to get us going. And then, like I say, we're going to ask you some questions. So I want to just start. You each gave such beautiful introductions, so we have a good sense of what you're bringing into the room. I happen to know that there's some collaboration that's happened, that you might know each other, and there might be some very specific examples that you could offer. So what I'd like to just hear is a little bit more specificity around some of the collaborations that you've all undertaken. And I think underneath that, what's changed you? What has been transformative for you? So I will certainly call on one of you if you don't get rolling. Looking around. Uh-oh. Amanda.
I knew where it was going. I should have just raised my hand. So about 12 years ago, I was asked to join this group of 6 artists and 6 scientists called the Collaboratory. And our whole goal was to go on trips together and talk. And up until that point, I had written many grants, I'd done many projects, and it was always to produce something, to make a product. Like as an artist, my value was in what I made. And I was paid for what I thought. And I had never experienced that before or even considered that that was a thing. And one of the people in the Collaboratory was Roopali. And so we went on these multiple different field trips to the wastewater treatment plant was one of them, which feels ironic. I guess the history was coming forward. And we were just in a room discussing. And I think I had never even considered that my ideas about space and place and climate were as valuable as a scientist. And just to realize that I had value in these conversations and that we were peers and that we were equals. And that I could ask questions that would have scientists think differently, and they could ask me questions that would change how I thought. And from that moment, right after, in that same like time period, I applied to be the city artist in residence for the city of St. Paul. Yeah, where I worked for 6.5 years. And again, continued this idea that like I had value in a city, that as an artist, I brought a different way of thinking, a different way of showing up, that I could change systems and I could support the work that the city did. And that then influenced me to apply for a job at the Met Council that was not for an artist, and to show up in a position as an artist and to bring my whole self into that, even though that wasn't my job, and to end it with the chair saying I was their artist in residence, even though it wasn't my job title. I'm going with it because the chair says it is, so it's on my resume like that now. So thanks, Charlie. But I think that moment of like, I have value in these conversations, and not because I'm making your poster better or making a song for a raindrop. Yeah. Yeah, we are peers. And I think that allowed me to have a really great continued relationship with Roopali over and over again, and to continue to make work. And I will let her talk about the possible Love is Blind for Batteries that will be performing at the State Fair.
You have me with State Fair. Do you want to jump in?
I will. And I was actually reminded that part of our collaboratory experience, if I remember correctly, included us blindfolding each other and leading us through a forest. So it's trust building, but the blindfolding actually connects to the Love is Blind.
The future's bright, Roopali.
Yeah. Thank you. I thought I would kind of draw on a couple of examples of collaboration that came to mind. And I'll just lead in with the project that Amanda just mentioned now. And so through cross your fingers for me, everyone, a Department of Energy funded award that is for a project called Collected. We are building an education and outreach platform about batteries, the most exciting of things. But why it's so important that we collect them and keep them out of the trash and out of the landfills, and keep the toxics from leaching into the water and the soil and the sky, and that there's so much precious materials in these batteries that we are throwing away, and that we can reuse those metals, which means less mining in Minnesota and elsewhere, and means that we can try to build a circular economy of metals. And so we are building an exhibit for the State Fair. It's like a dream come true. And we are playing on what it means to recharge not only our devices, but to recharge ourselves. So we're talking about some rechargeable benches so we can sit down at the fair, which is it's hard to find a bench. And tied to that is also, how tied we are to our devices and constantly needing to charge them. And also, why do we hoard all of our batteries and put them in boxes or drawers and just wish that something will happen to them? So that's what we're working on. So our colleague Ben Amels in the audience, we're working with Ben and his team at Upstream Exhibits to design this State Fair experience for you all. And we have also been thinking playfully. We've been thinking about how our exhibit design can also include a battery variety show. And something that we're calling BYOB barbecue, bring your own batteries. But how, this is an opportunity for social exchange. So Amanda loves jumpsuits. We're trying to design some jumpsuits that include rechargeable packs so that fairgoers are forced to talk with us for 20 minutes so that they can recharge their phones, and we'll convince them to bring their batteries to us. Yeah.
Living the dream.
Yeah.
And I'll keep it at that. I've got some other examples, but I'll stay there. Yeah.
I see what you mean about joy in government. What about Benny and Katy? What have you two been doing?
Well, so Benny and I were kind of thrown into working together maybe about five years ago. And I don't know about you, Benny, if you had ever worked with someone like me, but I had definitely not worked with artists in any sort of meaningful capacity. I was in my former role at the U.S. Water Alliance, and our amazing CEO at the time, Radhika Fox, had this pipe dream to embed artists and artistic practices and strategies in the water sector. And she charged me with leading that program. And I was like, have you seen my stick figure drawings? Do you know what you're asking me to do here? But we started out by building a first artist in residence program. And that brought Benny to us. And we also very intentionally did not define what the charge of that artist role in our organization would be, or what project he would do, because I think that was kind of one of the things we had learned from artists like Amanda and some of the other folks that had touch points with the U.S. Water Alliance was, art isn't just about an output, it's also about a process. Yeah. Which we'll get more into, and I think was really the first lesson that Benny taught me, was really to ask the question, okay, you may not be an artist, you may be someone focused on science or technology or policy, but do you see the art in what you do? And how are you working to inform the process, not just your end goal? And maybe, I don't know if you want to add on to that.
And it was during the pandemic.
Yep.
It
wasn't supposed to be.
It wasn't supposed to be.
We designed this whole program to be in person.
Right.
And then the pandemic
hit. Then the pandemic hit. I think I came on like September or October of 2020. So it was in the midst of the pandemic. And the first thing I thought was, what am I supposed to do as an artist in residence for U.S. Water Alliance during the pandemic when everybody's sheltered in place and trying not to get sick? People were dying in mass every day. And the first thing I selfishly thought to myself was, I'm not coming in here rapping about being a raindrop or anything like that. There's got to be something deeper than that we're going to be involved in. And I was excited. I came in, I'm thinking like, okay, where the artists at? And then he was like,
we have none.
We don't have any. Which was cool. And it let me know, okay, now, are you only an artist when you're on stage? If that is the source of, what is it about being on stage? What is it about your work? What is it about your craft? And then I had to start stripping things away. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, even during that time of the pandemic, when you found yourself in a house trying to protect yourself, trying to protect your family, and you were sitting with your own contemplative thoughts. You were sitting with your own reflections. You're trying to strip away the excess, trying to figure out what has meaning and what has purpose. And I had to do that as an artist to figure out, okay, if I'm not only an artist when I'm on stage, I am an artist because of what I bring to this craft. And I said, we're gonna hip hop is my medium, being an MC is my medium, lyricism, poetry is my medium, but my mother was a social worker. My grandmother was an educator. My sister was a poet. They taught me about what it means to be in relationship. And so it made me curious about my staff. It made me curious about the organization. It made me curious about culture and how that was impacting. How are you feeling? I would ask Katy, and we would talk about these questions. Don't tell me what your position is. I can read that on the internet. I appreciate that. I've been on the about page of the staff. So I know what everybody does, but who are you before the work begins, and what is ailing you right now? What is concerning you right now in this moment? And we built our work around that. So we essentially became our work.
Right. And so Benny did this really beautiful thing where he took the 6 stages of how he creates art in hip hop music and translated them into learning modules for our staff to explore those questions of who are you before the work begins, and what brings you to this work, and who do you want to be, what do you want to see when this work ends. And that was really important at the beginning of the pandemic, because it was this moment of crisis of like, oh my God, what are we going to do? You know, a lot of our work was collaborative with utilities and communities, and suddenly we couldn't be in person with them. Yeah. And so you saw on one of Benny's early slides, one of those phases, the art of crate digging. And what he taught us through that process was really, you know, anytime I, as an artist, am trying to create something new, I first go back to what was and what has made me who I am, what has brought me to this moment, what has informed this moment in history. And one of the ways that he actually kind of took one of my projects I had been designing for a year and flipped it on its head was through that question and that piece on the art of crate digging. And in our climate portfolio, we had assembled an imagination team of 35 organizations across the water sector, equity leaders, city organizations, who were being charged with coming up with a net zero vision for water for 2050. And I was really focused on like, ooh, we get to 2050. What does it look like? What do we want to see? And Benny said, you forgot to do that art of crate digging. What if you first ask people, why aren't we where we want to be right now? And kind of dig into the past and look at the structures and infrastructure and policy decisions that have been made in the water sector that got us to where we were, which was not where we wanted to be. And so we explored that question with these 35 organizations, and it actually took a bunch of science and technology and utility people into a really deep process to, instead of creating all these policies and programs, doing a deep dive into the 7 cultural strategies that we really had to change and shifts in culture in the US water sector in order to get to a sustainable future. So going from looking at water infrastructure investments to reframing, like, it's not actually about infrastructure. What we're trying to do in the water sector is invest in people and public health and the planet. And what does that mean for looking at rating systems and how we structure bonds to fund water infrastructure, and who and where and how we prioritize natural resource solutions and lean on our indigenous partners to reconnect us with our waterways and redefine or really get back to our fundamental core relationship with water. So that was one of the ways, I think, with the imagination team that Benny's work really influenced us and kind of shifted how we started projects at the Alliance.
It's really, really beautiful what I hear from all of the, amazing. What I hear from all of these examples, and these were really just on the surface of what these human beings are doing, is something I think about in the context of Stanford all the time, which is that we aren't going to solve the problems that we face with science and technology alone. We have to change hearts and minds. We have to shift culture. And so much of this work that artists can do is about cultivate trust, to engage people in really navigating the reality, the sort of the consequential reality of the issues that we face in a way that helps us all understand that we're interdependent. Yes. What happens to you is going to affect me. And so I feel like this work is so important. I'm mindful of time. I knew it would fly by. We do have some more time, but I am committed to these people because we want to hear from them. I want to just turn to something, and this is where I go a bit rogue. And so a question that we had talked about is how do we do this work now, right? I want to just bring into that this layer of something that we've been talking about over the course of today, and we've been talking about over time, and to all of our incredible government leaders and workers. It's common for this work to happen in a pilot fashion. It's not common for people to build it into the infrastructure of the work that you do. That's right. And I will say in my career that I think that if you invest in artists, they will return tenfold. And so it shouldn't be a thing where it's like, that's a nice to have, we can't afford that, we're gonna have to make other decisions. It really has to be a thing where we understand that what makes us human is our creativity. And what will help us through these hard times is our ability to imagine that future. And so this is just my plea to the good people of the Twin Cities, that we ought to think about how this, as Benny says, because everything he says you want to repeat, where we pilot to permanence, where we understand that this is not nice to have, this is not a leave behind, this is actually imperative work. So I say that to just kind of preface this next part of our conversation, which is to hear from any of you about how do we do this work now and how is it resilient?
I can get us started. Build really great teams, I think, is how we do it.
Yes.
And expand our notion of who belongs on that team. Play matchmaker, right? Connect people who you think just might have something and help them build those relationships. So I also want to sort of flip what you said, Deborah, on its head. I absolutely agree with you that building our team so that they include artists is so important, and it's something I've been doing in my research programs. And those of you who are researchers out there, you might know it's really common to tag that artist in at the very end when you need to make that poster or do something we call broader impacts.
Yes.
Which is a completely backwards way to do it, and it's really about building that those relationships at the very front end. But the thing that I wanted to mention that is a different take on what you said, Deborah, is that I also invite the artists out there to include those of us who are scientists or researchers, or however we work in the knowledge making enterprise. And I say that because we all get asked to join boards and organizations, but when I get asked to join an artist organization, I always say yes and jump at that opportunity, because it's definitely my learning edge. I get to meet new people. I get to do fantastic things that are not part of my everyday. And so I just want to extend that request. And I don't know if my colleagues Sarah Peters and Steve Dietz are in the audience, but like 10 years ago, they invited me to join the board of Northern Spark, Northern Lights. And I did, and it was such a fantastic opportunity. But the year that they asked me, I really looked at them and I was like, are you sure? Like, what do I have to give this organization? And it really was such a meaningful engagement for me. And so I look forward to those kinds of opportunities for myself. And I hope others who do the work that I do get the chance to serve for in those capacities.
I love that. And not a flip, but an ad. Yeah, I love that. Others, how do we do this work now, and how can we make it resilient?
I think sometimes the most creative thing you can do is go back to the beginning. And right now, we're still in the midst of what our former Surgeon General describes as an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. Although everybody got a device in their pockets or on their laps or under their seats that seemingly connects us to the world like never before. Yet people are really, really fighting against the public health effects of loneliness and isolation. So meaningful relationships. How many of people in this room can testify to the importance of meaningful relationships in their life? That is the foundation of it all. And guess what? It is hard, tedious, meticulous, oftentimes aggravating work to cultivate meaningful relationships with people that we care about, with people in our community. But relationship is the core, and everything else, though it seemingly connects us to what is fast, what is quick, what will get our engagement, what will get our clicks, it is not necessarily meaningful and soul-filling. So before we think that it's this grand new creative thing or this grand new innovation that we're always looking for because we want to be first, because we want to post it, and we want somebody to say, oh, he did something or she did something or they did something first. Sometimes it's going back to the beginning and being able to slow down, ask ourselves who we are, and that answer may change every day. But in the context of that answer even changing every day, you imagine that the person that you're cultivating a relationship with is experiencing the same thing. Hey, how are you? Are you well? What do you need? What can we do together? That is the foundation. It's not that artists have some creative ability to do more with those moments. I think oftentimes artists have refined the skill of being able to slow down longer with those moments and watch it bear fruit. So the way we do this work now, for me, very importantly, it may not be online all the time. You may have to go to somebody. You may have to go touch and agree. You may have to cultivate those relationships in real time and slow down and ask yourself, what can I do for someone else so that we can do something together?
It's always hard to follow you. But I'm excited to have 2 years of doing it.
Yes, me too.
I think a lot about, like the minute Roopali showed up, she's like, "Did you hear the news?" I was like, "No, I've been here all day." We need joy. Like, we need play. We need hope. I read the news, but I try not to feel it. And not that I don't feel it happening, but I was like, if we don't keep hoping or using joy, play, connection, we are going to be frozen. And I think, again, what artists can do is turn a survey into a popsicle truck that drives around a city, or they can take a long range plan and bring 14 artists into it and have them make flags that then hang in the council chambers, which have never had color before, right? They change systems, they add color, bright, hope, and they ask different questions. And so I think what we need right now is like truly partnerships, and we need this cross-sector work. And we need artists like not just brought to the table, but leading the table. I think artists are leaders, and I think like letting us lead. And I think that there's a great opportunity when it all breaks to build something we've never seen before. And that's what we do.
Yeah, I think that like focus on arts partnerships and cross-sector collaborations to really build the new is so critical right now. We at Policy Link do a lot of federal policy work, and I live and work in DC, and there are fires every day to put out. There's a lot of pivots to defensive work happening right now, and yes, that's important. But what are we defending if we're not building something new when we have the moment to? And I think arts partnerships are just so critical for that. One of the things we're focused on the water team at Policy Link is pushing for a national permanent low-income water assistance program. Like we have permanent programs for, well, hopefully permanent programs for food and energy assistance, but we've never had that for water. And something we're taking from a lot of the artists that work in the Water Equity Climate Resilience Caucus in our narrative change working group is, flipping this false or harmful narrative around water being a commodity and something that we have to buy and purchase and manage, to writing our relationship with water, seeing water as a living entity, and really focusing on the human right to water. And what that translates to at the federal level in this moment is, we're fighting and defending for a right to a low-income water assistance program, but also starting to lay that groundwork for moving from water assistance as a Band-Aid solution to true water affordability, and like building those narratives, exploring what sorts of policy changes would need to happen at the federal level, state and local level. So while we're doing this defensive work, we don't lose sight of the new world or the old world or the better world, whatever you want to call it, that we're trying to build.
So this is a really nice segue to ask you just one final question before we get to the people in the room. And what you said, Katy, is so important, this idea that we must always be imagining the future, and we can't only be reactive. And so I feel like that's something to really take with us as we move out into the world. But okay, so we've done this work. It's amazing. It's 2050. What does it look like? Real quick. Just a real easy, quick, just what does it look like?
There are artists working and with every governor across the country, there's an artist in every mayor's office across the country. There are artists at the federal level, and not in a temporary position, but as full-time staff with health care, benefits, and pensions.
Okay, there we go. 2050. Anyone want to add to that? There's some cheers happening. Yeah.
Sorry, Benny.
No, that's good. That's great, actually. I think life becomes slower. People become healthier. The relationship we have with flora and fauna changes dramatically. More is shared, more is communal, more is valued. And I think our quality of life elevates tremendously, and not solely because of artists, but because artists have done some of the thoughtful things to say, not only do we belong in this work, but we belong in this work in relationship with other people, with the engineers, with the garbage worker, with the sanitation worker, with the doctors, with those who are theologians, we belong in this together. So I think those benefits will encapsulate us, and I think will also impact our environment, and a true interdependence will emerge, because the earth is hurting right now, y'all. We hurting, but we only got one earth, as far as I know. If y'all know something else, please let me know. But we only got one place to be. And if we were really that wise, we would be taking care of it and figuring it out. So that's what I think would be the headline to it.
Any ads?
I think in addition to paying artists for the experts that they are, paying them fairly, I think I see 2050 as like, we're not talking about arts partnerships because it's just so ingrained, like holding on to creative processes and strategies and working together, that we don't have to actually or actively seek that out. And I think what comes with that is a lot of strength across our sectors to really let go of fear, let go of the fear of trying something new and having it not work and scrapping it and trying something else new, and really creating and co-creating together and really leaning into the uncertainty. I think back on when Benny and I started working together in this huge moment of a lot of fear and uncertainty of what was happening to our social systems and structures. And that 5 years later is happening again at the federal level, instead of with health, with policy. You know, Benny, you said it earlier today, same monster, or no, different
same
monster,
emotions,
same emotions,
different monster,
different monster.
But the emotions are still as real,
yeah,
as it was then.
And I think 2050, if we've successfully integrated arts expertise and partnerships, we'll be comfortable moving through that emotionality and the uncertainty or whatever fear that hits our way.
I have little to add, except for maybe we would have solar-powered free popsicle trucks everywhere.
That is a vision to hold on to. Okay, so can we switch to our interactive moment? Is everyone ready? Yes, we're not going to make you dance or sing, but we are going to bring up the, what's this thing called?
Mentimeter.
Mentimeter. Yeah, people know. Earlier I said, is this like a Twin Cities thing? Like what? Anyway, so we have two questions for you. For those of you that don't know Mentimeter, you can join at menti.com and you use this code 9522-2161. And it's going to be like a beautiful cacophony of everything that is possible in this room. And the first question is, what inspired you tonight? And what are you going to do with it? So I heard in this last part of our conversation that we are, we've got already artists in residence everywhere. That's awesome. And we are imagining popsicle carts for sure. We should keep that one. Your hearts, I want to harness this hope together. That's lovely. What else? What inspired you? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to run out today? You guys help me jump in if you want to.
To remember the joy and importance of community and to keep building the possibilities together
There's a lot of joy here. Joy and faith is part of the work. Bring
Digging
joy.
through the crates.
Yes.
That's
looking
a
back.
really good
I
one,
love
right?
that.
Yeah.
Digging through the crates, looking back before looking forward.
Yeah. Slowing down.
Yes. Focusing on the process, slowing down.
Make hope contagious.
Make hope contagious. Slowing down. Life is slower. Art can impact all sectors. Oh, focus on meaningful connections. Make government fun. Woo!
It's feeling fun right now. A
Action
moment to. Oh wait,
inspiration.
that one went too fast.
Yeah.
Okay, but we'll get all these. Play must be integrated into the work. Oh, this is so
Wow.
good. Look at you, very productive.
Yes.
Make art part of your work. I
Yes.
love that. Oh,
Honor
zoom
the
away
creative
from the
process.
logistics. Zoom out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is water finite? Y'all, I just want to add that analogy that we talked about, not analogy, yes, a metaphor. Fresh water, how much water is available to us in the first week of my master it's a naturalist class. You all should Google it. Every land-grant university can offer a naturalist
Drink
class
up.
extension. Fill a bathtub with 26 gallons of water. That is the fresh water available to us as human beings on Earth.
It's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor. That's not the real amount, but that's the metaphor. Then you take 2 teaspoons of that water, and that's how much is actually available to us to use. So that question of is water finite, and when y'all were talking about this work, we have to take care of what we have. We have to value what we have because it is not infinite.
Yeah. Yeah.
My bad. I just had to throw that in. I
that's-
thought that was a great.
It's beautiful.
Is water finite?
There's a lot of continued kind of play and slow down.
Mhm.
Is Dr. Jill Sankey in the room still? Where is she? Is she?
Yes.
Oh, there she is. Jill told us a story earlier today about being one of the first artists in residence in a hospital. I'll just leave it general, Jill. And she and her colleague, the other artist, were in the context of this very incredibly large hospital, and everyone was just running to and from, back and forth, everywhere. You can imagine this kind of culture in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided as their first gesture as artists was to never walk fast. And I just think that's a really beautiful way to think about in your day-to-day, how you bring that kind of presence of mind and creativity into just the way you're moving. So thanks for letting me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joy is resistance, creativity resistance. It's all about process. Systems change equals mega arts and craft activity.
Ooh, flood the government with artists. I
Yes.
love that one.
Yes.
I love that one. Okay, we're gonna go to the last question because I want to be mindful of everyone's time and dinner plans and such things. So we got, as far as I can tell, 115 responses to that question, which is pretty fabulous. So here's our last question for you. It is now your turn to tell us what 2050 looks like. We got it right. What is the headline that talks about how art and climate work have changed our region here?
Wow.
Water is free.
Water is free. I love that. And our infrastructure is fully funded to do its job
Yes.
by the federal government.
Yes.
And we realize that we are all artists in our own important and unique way.
People feel safe.
People are happy in public space.
Oh, I love that we are swimming in the Mississippi River.
Yes. We're all artists. Air is clean indoors. And
Bikes everywhere. Our president is an artist. Yeah, that's a good
Benny for president.
one. Benny for president.
Amanda Lovelee is Met Council chair. Woo. Oh, man.
Okay,
Air
that's
is clean.
really good. Arts are an integrated part of
Yes.
all learning.
High-speed trains. Walkable, workable, shoppable.
Yeah.
The book title, How We Got Out of the Loneliness Pandemic.
Oh, I love that title.
Buildings are oriented to water, not the other way around. I love that idea of what are we building and creating, orienting to what we already have.
Native
Oh, I love
plants.
the Twin Cities. So imagine the headlines. Twin Cities lead nation in creative community and environmental
Yes.
resilience. We're going to try to beat you out there in the Bay Area. But anyway, get to it.
Yeah.
We noticed. That's really, really beautiful.
Someone said native plant takeover early, and I really love that. Bring back the native species of flora. Yes.
I love those pieces on remember when artists were marginalized? Was that a thing? And inequities are now a footnote in the history book.
Look at me. Minnesota throws out looking at phones for eye contact. WPA 2.0. We're working on it.
Yeah.
We're working on it. That's so great. And children are valued, and the arts are really funded, and the well-being. Sorry, it skipped already past.
Yeah.
It's flowing.
Wow.
Yeah. This is beautiful.
We can get to year 3,000. Do we say that? How do we say that? 2050? 3,000?
The
Right?
Something.
Vikings won a Super Bowl.
The one here. Wait, who won the Super Bowl?
The Vikings.
The Vikings won the Super Bowl. Yeah. I said who? Haha. Poverty. We never met her, or I never met her, is a good one. These are beautiful.
Capitalism.
We have 96 or 86 responses. You all have been so generous being in this conversation with us and sharing the way we can together really imagine something better. And I think just no matter what, the future is us being in community together and really insisting that we can imagine something better, and it's ours to have. So I'm going to kind of wind us down because I think we got a little bit of a late start. We're good. Okay, so we'll just a few more. Biking is still a school subject, and parents mostly ride bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
U.S. leads the world in health indicators.
Yeah.
Including mental health.
My March Madness bracket isn't busted.
Mine already.
Yeah. That reminds me of something else. But anyway, okay, I'm gonna turn it back to Benny. To bring us home. You ready to do this?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank y'all for coming out here. Y'all have a beautiful city. This is my first time ever being here. Thank you. Beautiful city. I've met beautiful people. I've seen beautiful communities, and I talk about arts in this way because I am an artist, and I don't believe in scarcity. So art isn't just for me. Creativity isn't just for me. When I think about the future of this work, I think number one, we changed the relationship. You all are not object, you're subject. And all artists, all creative people treat their audience, treat the listener, treat the observer as subject and not object. We could get up here and we can tell you everything about what we've done. I wish we had more time so I could learn all the wisdom and the knowledge from the people in the room. It's a reciprocal relationship. So I think when this work is done right, we shift that perspective. We go from object to subject in our relationship. I also think that the purpose of art, while it does make us feel something, it does remind us of things, it does teach us things, but then to what end? Transformation. When you read something, when you witness something, when you're a part of something, you feel something that ultimately leads you to examine yourself, to examine your world, and it changes you. So we're talking about changing the relationship, the nature of it. We're talking about art that leads us in creative process that leads us to transformation. And we move more away from what I like to call a la carte art. Now, a la carte art isn't bad. We all go to a restaurant and sometimes you want to order things individually off the menu just to be brought to the table. But it's really good when it's the full course, when it is together. It is about the relationship of things together on the plate, on the table for you and everyone else. So when I think about moving away from a la carte art, not just bringing in the artist a la carte at the end to sprinkle a little thing on a project that you've already thought about, you've already worked on for months, for years, and they are just expected to sell it to other people. We move away from that and we move into more systems integration, integrating that artistic thinking, both sides of our brain, because we all have the capacity to use it, into systems thinking, into systems change. We bring those kinds of people across sectors into the work. And like you said, artists are looking and reaching out to people who are not only artists to infuse their work with more insight and perspective. This is what I do see for the future of this work. And I think if we can do that, we can lead ourselves away from scarcity and realize that we do have enough. We live in abundance, and we can live in abundance. We can share. We can value what we have. We can take care of it, and we can be really intentional about what we are handing the next generations. Not only what we have, because of course we like to think, what about me? What about right now? What do I have? But what are we handing off to those who are yet to be born, to those who are born and in this world right now, but don't have the wherewithal quite yet? They haven't been given the time enough to be in this room and understand how poignant this moment is right now. So ultimately, if we change the relationship, the nature of it, if we understand that now is the time to demand creative process and artistic thinking that leads to transformation, if we start moving away from a la carte art and more into systems integration and systems thinking, and we realize we can live in abundance, I think we live in a world where artists are not peripheral, but the artists and the creative folks become the city planners, and they become the educators, and they become the physicians, and they become these things, and we can change a generation, we can change government, we can change policy on a very, very deep level. And ultimately what we're fighting for right now is not only how to save and change those things, but we're really at a point where we're thinking about how do we save ourselves? Because otherwise we won't do it. And artists can play a pivotal role in that. So when we get to that point, it will be very easy for us to say what I'm about to ask you to repeat 3 times, because it is very important to say these things. The words matter. I am a creative being. I am a creative being. I am a creative being. Thank you all very much.
Just a quick, we're going to hear from Megan to bring us home, but a big shout out to the crew, the team here at the Walker. What a beautiful experience it's been to work with you. Thank you. And one more round of applause for these amazing people.
Really, really quick. I'm Megan Lee Flad. I'm the Associate Director of Public Engagement here at the Walker. I am so grateful to the folks on the stage, to you all. Making time in this world that we're living on is significant, and that you have spent it here with us. I have a tissue because I've been like, I process through tears and joy and emotion, and I'm just like incredibly grateful. I needed this today. I'm sure many of you did, and this idea of abundance at this time, it feels so critical. I'm crying here at my job, and you all get to witness it. But I want us to keep imagining what is possible, and we can do that together. We are open until 9 p.m. The bar is open till 8. No more boomers in Congress. Check out the galleries, find these folks, find each other. Truly, I am just like, gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. So good night.